All right, welcome back to Getting Sober ... again, and today I am answering one of your questions, and it's a question that I've asked myself, and I'm sure you've asked yourself, and it's one of the harder ways to look at drinking and sobriety, and that question is, if I drink, do I have to start all the way back over at day one, or even day zero, depending on how masochistic you are, right? So the very short answer is yes. However, I'm going to offer you a tool to keep moving forward. Okay. And I get this a lot, especially with people that are at like day 3. And by all means, I don't mean to like jinx anybody and say, but I always keep saying that like the first 3 days are the hardest. And it seems to be that. It was always the hardest with me. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you're different, right? But for me, the first 3 days were always hard. So when we start saying like, well, if your approach was, I'm gonna get sober for the new year, well, that's a pretty lofty goal, right? You're already saying that you're gonna be sober for a whole year. So every day you're probably approaching sobriety like you can't drink, like there's something that you like doing, you just can't do anymore. So you just have to just figure out how to go about life, and I don't know. And then you just kind of go into that stare, that 1,000-yard stare. And then there's like a montage of like memories and high fives and stuff. And then, you know, there's a couple times where you throw up, but then there's more high fives. And then it's like people are cheering your name, even though that didn't happen. And so, well, the advice is, if you had a relapse, hopefully it wasn't a big one, but let's say you had a New Year's resolution, right? You're like, I'm not gonna drink. And then 4 days into it, or 5 days into it, you slip up and you have a drink, or you have a couple of drinks, or whatever happens. But the way I like to look at it is get to the next milestone. Just get there. Let's say we're gonna go let's get to a week, okay? So on New Year's Day through the 5th, you were sober, and then on the 5th, you know, cracked open a 5th, right? And then you had a little bit to drink. Well, instead of derailing all of your progress, I feel like the much more healthy approach mentally, you know, to look at it is, let's just keep moving forward. We're not gonna, we're sort of gonna sweep it under the rug, so to speak. We're not gonna say it never happens. We're not gonna, you know, lie to other people and lie to ourselves. We're still gonna be honest. We're still gonna put a little asterisk on our record. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep moving forward, because what we wanna do is we wanna be proud of ourselves. We wanna have a reason to keep going. And when we have a day of drinking, you know, the next day in the morning, you physically feel like shit, you emotionally feel like shit, and then probably moving into that, like later on that day, you go, depending on the severity, how much you drank the night before, you might say, well, so who cares? What's the point? I'm starting back over at day 1 or day 0. Technically, it won't even be a full day until, you know, until the last time I had it, or 24 hours from when I had the last drink. So it's, again, that's all just like super self-deprecating, and it's really destructive. So we know that it's a struggle. You know it's a struggle. I know it's a struggle. And then when we talk about, so if we take some numbers and some statistics, so people that are in recovery, for example, statistically speaking, less than 20% of people who attempt to get sober and go through a recovery program, less than 20% of those people end up staying sober for just 1 year. And to you might be thinking like, oh, yeah, a year is a long time, right? So we'll take a step back. We're not going to talk about that yet. But people who make it to a full 2 years of sobriety have a much larger percentage of staying sober. The people that make it to 2 years, they have a success rate of about 60% of staying sober. And then the next major milestone, and it always happens with statistics and years and milestones or whatever, they just skip like year 3 and 4, like they don't matter. But then, so like year 5, Year 5, if you make it 5 years sober, which I already know what's happening in your head. You're saying, well, that's forget it, 5 years. I can't even make it 5 days. Knock it off. Listen. All right. So I don't know if I can make it 5 years either. That's not the point. I'm just giving you some statistics. So 5 years, if you can make it, the people that make it 5 years, it's really likely, it's highly likely that they are going to stay sober and it is no longer a problem for them. It is no longer an issue. I don't know how truthful those people are being, honestly. I was actually just watching last night an interview with Seymour Hoffman, great actor, right? But he was doing like a Nightline or 2020 interview or something like that. And he was talking, it's a sad interview, because if you ever struggle with any kind of addiction, even though he's a great actor, right? You can tell he's doing a really shitty acting job in this interview. And they're talking about him. The question is, they talk about his drug abuse and drinking and all that. And he ends up saying that he quit everything when he was like 22 years old. And so by the time this interview happened, I mean, he's well into his 40s. I think it was, I'm not sure when it was recorded, but I'll just say, I'll assume that he was well into his 40s. So he was making it seem like he had been over 20 years sober at that point. But you could tell from his body language, the way he was, using his hands and kind of laughing off some things. And when he wouldn't give direct answers, that he wasn't, maybe he was sober during that interview, right? Because we all kind of have we tend to lie to ourselves, right? At times, a lot. And we know what's best for us. We know that sobriety would be the better option for us, and we know that we're struggling, but we know, like, well, we hung out with our buddies on Sunday and we drank, so technically we aren't sober. But that's what I want to help you get over the hump of, right? Is the self-deprecating thoughts and the ideas that you have, and the thoughts that stop you from regaining your momentum, okay? So my advice to you is, instead of looking at it as I have to start all the way over at day 1, what if you got to the end of the month? What if you get to 30 days and you only drank the one day on day 5? What if? That's a pretty good, it's a really nice milestone, isn't it? That's something to be proud of, isn't it? That's something to reward yourself with more sobriety, isn't it? Right? But we end up doing the thing that we always do. We get to 5 days or whatever it is, and then we derail. And it might not even be a big derailment. We might have just had like a beer and a shot, or maybe we had 2 beers or whatever it was, 1 beer. And then we start hating ourselves and, all the self-loathing. And then the next day we wake up and we're like, well, what's the point? I could just easily, I don't have to be burdened with the thought of, oh, I don't do this anymore. I don't have to have all these strict rules, And it's like, it's really easy just to get off work and then go get happy hour and just resume life as normal, Go back to the bar and see, say, hey, everybody, I'm back. And then see all the other people that maybe had New Year's resolutions and like they were there first. And you're like, oh, you guys are already here. I'm sitting here struggling at 5 days and you guys already quit so easily. But you need to do what's best for you, So the best idea, I feel like, is just forgive yourself. Just forgive yourself and just move forward and get to the end of day 6. That's it. And then get to the end of day 7. So even if we go back and look at it and we say like, well, it was just a week, right? We get a week sober. We know we drank one of those days, but now let's look at it the most positive possible way. What is the most positive way of looking at, out of 7 days, you drank one of them? Answer. Think like to yourself, what's the most positive way to look at it? You're going to come up with your answer. That's why I'm like pausing right now. So you come up with your answer. What is the best way to look at it if you drank 1 day out of the 7 days? So my suggestion is, well, you only drank 1 day out of 7 days. Now, that's not a license to just keep moving forward and say like, well, then the new rule is I drink 1 day a week. Well, if that's something though that's going to help you, and if you have the discipline to do that, chances are you're probably not going to have very much success. I'm just saying. But if you've cut down your drinking from 7 days a week to 1 day a week, congratulations. You have done something that you haven't been able to do. You've cut down your drinking by 6 days a week you're not drinking. Well, what are you doing in the other 6 days? So yeah, everybody's going to have their own personal milestones. If we're talking about drinking, that's 52. So 52 weeks a year if you drink 1 time a week. So you drink 50 going from however many days in a year, or you drink 365 times a year down to 52. Still kind of a lot, but when you look at it like that, but 1 out of 7 days, So, and I'm not saying like I didn't quit. I didn't quit quitting. I'm still sober, but I'm just trying to offer you a place of comfort so that mentally you're not like hating yourself. So I know that a lot of people end up trying to get sober, and then like on day 3 they quit and they're done, and then or on day 4 they quit and they're done, or day 5. So I think the most toxic mental attitude to have is, well, forget it. I'm so close to just, I lost all my momentum. I'm just going to quit. Like, just keep the momentum with you. Realistically, let's answer that. Here's to combat your very self-deprecating brain. Okay. I'll ask you an honest question. Out of that whole 5 days, okay, let's say you drank 1 day out of those 5 days. How long did you actually drink? How long was your drinking session? Let's be fair. Let's say your drinking session was it like 2 hours? Did you watch the game or something? Like, I mean, I know there were some games to watch. I know like football playoffs are coming up, the college football playoffs are going on, or whenever you watch this video, something else is probably happening. But how long was your drinking session? Because we usually go, it's a session. Did you just have a beer with dinner? Well, that's not even a session. That's just a beer with dinner. Did you watch a whole game and have like 3 beers? Okay, then that's 3 hours, okay? So let's look at it again. Out of 5 days, you drank then in that 3 hour scenario, you watched the whole game or whatever. You drank for 3 hours. So multiply 24 hours in a day times 5 days, and then what is that, 120 hours? Out of 120 hours, you drank for 3 of them. And it's not like you weren't drinking, like constantly drinking, pounding. If you break it down, it's like, well, you only took a couple of sips here and there. So I'm just trying to help you out mentally, So like, of course, I don't want you drinking if, that's your goal. If you want to get sober for the first time, congratulations. But if you're getting sober, again, then let's try to stick to the game plan of staying sober, right? So be kind to yourself and keep moving forward. Get to your next goal. Sweep it under the rug, forget about it. You don't have to crucify yourself. Just keep going, get to the next week or the next 2 weeks or the next milestone of the month or whatever. Love yourself. The reason why you're doing this is because you love yourself. That's why we're doing this. If you didn't care about yourself, if you didn't care about your future, you wouldn't be watching this video. If you didn't care about yourself and care about the other people around you, your friends, your family, your coworkers, you wouldn't be making the step in the first place. You've acknowledged that there's some sort of problem, whether it be financially, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, and you want to improve. So congratulations to you. Stay away from self-loathing. Stay away from self-hate, and get back on board with loving yourself and being kind to yourself, okay? So if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And if you haven't yet, send me a message. Comment below. I respond to all of the messages so far. Once I get to 1 million subscribers, there's no way I'll be messaging everybody back, but I'm definitely in the realm of being able to write you back very easily. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.